And if you turn to page 188, Riggins explains the two incidents that are widely considered to be the black marks of the 20th century. He says, with the middle of the century nearing, the world had been plagued by war and confusion. The Second World War brought the culmination of these turbulent times with two holocausts: the death camps of Nazi Germany, which claimed the lives of 11 million, and the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in which 100,000 were killed instantly and another 100,000 died from radiation exposure. These history books, however, have failed to stress the severity of the incident that oral tradition has dubbed pretty damn close. I'm going to tell you the true history. I met the man who started it all, rolled the first snowball, if you will. Martin was his name. He had a rough childhood, stuck in the suburbs, which is a cross between the city and the countryside. He was a punk. But no one knew what went on behind those closed doors. Isolation. His mother denied him emotional support, his brothers denied him sibling companionship, well, his sister did too. The story says that one time he blew up a cat and his father was so wrapped up in his work that he didn't even notice. He began a life of petty crime, robbery usually, convenience stores, diners. He was a product of his environment, but he would admit that everybody is a product of their environment, and everybody creates their environment. So it is not a very good excuse for the human race. When he used the excuse, it didn't do him any good. He wound up in Port Penn, but was enlightened by what he encountered inside. He had his first true friends, camaraderie, to watch one another's backs. It really changed him. There was a Luke. Before prison, Luke was in business, a banker of sorts, allocating funds for himself. In the courts, they call it computer fraud. And John. Before prison, John was in business too, packaging and resale. I guess he pushed the resale too much. And finally, Alex. Before prison, well, Alex was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, he killed somebody. The four of them watched out for one another and had fun all the time. But he served his time. 6-month sentence and 2 good behavior. That was pretty common at that time. He told me that he had considered doing something awful just to stay inside longer, because everything outside was just as messed up as before he got locked up. He actually got a job in a bank. Maybe job is the wrong word. He got a cubicle, I mean. All of his buddies from port served their time and got out. They got together, formed a sort of society. They mostly just hung out and enjoyed one another's company, played poker, went on excursions like the zoo and miniature golf. They had people to confide in, mostly, to trust. John loved to go bowling, but he sucked. At work, Martin climbed a few rungs up the corporate ladder. That was a saying at the time, the ladder representing the company and each rung representing a higher salary. Basically, he moved into an office. Eventually, some people left the company, so Martin secured a few positions for his friends. But they didn't all hang around forever. An even year rolled around. That meant election time in the 20th century. Alex took a stab at the polls, so to speak. He was a natural-born politician. And he won. He became mayor of a small town. He had an innovative way of revamping the penal system through education. It helped that he had the inside scoop. John left the bank also. He invested in music. He dusted off his old guitar and just started playing again. He wrote a couple of songs and played them in some local joints, gathering up a few fans along the way. And Luke usually finished his day's work early and would spend the rest of the day on his own personal project. He was developing a program for the ethical use of computers, promoting ethics among corporate employees. Peace. Pretty soon his little project was being used by dozens of companies in the Midwest. Martin stuck around and kept himself busy on the weekends by helping the community. He organized a little league for baseball. That was a popular sport at the time. Martin hung around while his friend's success skyrocketed. Alex was elected governor, John had 2 hit singles and an album on its way to gold, and Luke formulated his own company based on the Peace software. Alex developed a program that eliminated nearly all poverty in the state through job training and government employment. Through John's music, millions of people developed a greater understanding of spiritual existence. Eyes were open. And Luke's peace, and then hope, love, honesty, were bought by every Fortune 500 company and had eliminated 86% of ethical problems in every business in the nation. Martin still stayed local. He became a volunteer fireman. For the most part, he just got cats out of trees. The 4 of them still stayed in touch, and Martin helped give them a lot of ideas, like a ringleader. Alex became president in a landslide victory. No one ran against him, and he still got the highest voter turnout in history. Another fact you won't find in your book. Military budgets were converted into playground construction and job retraining grants. Missiles were disarmed and destroyed in every industrial country. He fed the world, redistributing surplus food to starving nations. John joined the ranks of Beethoven and Bob Dylan, having touched the hearts of billions. Luke's ethical codes became unwritten laws. The world was at its high point in economic stability and cooperation for the moment. It started with a scuffle in a bar. Some guys flicking lit cigarettes into ashtrays across the room pissed off the bartender. They all got into a fight, and the next thing you knew, the place was on fire. The fire spread to the apartment complex next door. The brawl spilled into the street. People streamed out into the streets, and a little girl sprinted into the middle of the road just as a car sped by. The neighborhood was blue-collar, and the car that hit Stephanie was a Willis. It didn't even slow down. Hundreds, then thousands headed off after it. A brick was thrown, then another. The crowd flipped over a Ford Bronco and set it on fire. A nearby gated community was soon ablaze. The cops arrived and tear-gassed the crowd. It could have ended there. But a news crew videotaped a panicked National Guardsman beating a 15-year-old kid clutching a stolen VCR. Satellites picked up the image and flashed it worldwide. Every major city, first in the U.S., then Canada, Europe, Asia, you name it, erupted into class rage with looting and rioting in the streets. The class war was on. The Greek government quickly declared martial law, and the capital was stabilized in 14 hours. Under the rubric of border security, Greek troops occupied Albania, Bulgaria, and Yugoslavia. The UN condemned the action. Continental forces mobilized for a counter-invasion. People braced for the worst, for the missiles to fall. But they didn't, for once. It had been 3 years since all warheads had been disarmed and destroyed. Alex had seen to that. 2 days later, a peace conference was convened in Geneva. 185 countries attended. An international cooperation effort was initiated. Cities were quickly rebuilt, neighbors helping neighbors. The class war sputtered and died. Peacetime. Or so they thought. But let me have Martin himself tell you.
Peacetime again. Or so we thought. 3 months later, people started dying all over the world. First in Frankfurt, then Madrid, Tokyo, Charleston, Sydney. It took 6 months for the Center for Disease Control to figure it out. 3 years before, the Swiss had contracted with 16 countries to warehouse radioactive waste material from disarmed missiles. One of the facilities had leaked into a chocolate factory down the road. Soon, a contaminated bonbon called Petit à Petit, nougat-filled rich dark chocolate, had been distributed and consumed worldwide. The gift boxes were rounded up and the frequency of deaths slowed to a stop, but not before 0.25% of the world's population had died. About 13 million. It could have been worse. It was pretty damn close.
When I met Martin, he was retired, living in Tucson. He kept busy running a job retraining program for his neighborhood, helping ex-miners learn computer skills. Nobody knew where he'd been or what part he'd played in Pretty Damn Close. He said he wasn't sure what went wrong, and he wasn't too worried about it. He figured that someday, when everyone had a good job, enough good food to eat, and comfortable shelter, they would try the peace thing again.
Day in and day out, you follow that path that's been deep for you, but don't let it be you down. Just find another way, trudge on through, and you need to know that every choice can bring you pleasure, can bring you pain. It all depends on that path you take. 'Cause your life's in your hands, don't let it go. You control your destiny. Happiness you will know if you follow your dreams and try to see the light. Don't let them trample you down. Reach for the stars, yeah, you gotta get your feet off the ground. Whoa, seize your life, be what you want it to be. Stretch for the darkness, 'cause that's when you'll see